Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. JD LaRock, the president and CEO of Nifty, the network for teaching entrepreneurship, and welcome to the latest episode of Entre News, our recurring interview series where I chat with Nifty students, alumni, educators, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders to discuss different facets of the entrepreneurial journey from the classroom to the corner office. And today, I'm very pleased to welcome Sharif El-Mekki, who is the founder and CEO of the Center for Black Educator Development. Sharif, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit, first of all, about the Center for Black Educator Development. What's its origin story and what is its work today?
Yeah, absolutely. Really honored to be in this work in this space with this just amazing team that we've been cultivating for the past 5 years. This is actually our fifth anniversary of being in existence, and our mission is to rebuild a national Black teacher pipeline. And with that, we believe that there are three kind of pillars that help stand up or protect and support a Black teacher pipeline. One is around policy and advocacy. That includes student voices, it includes teacher voices, it includes the research, and like what are the policies that we should be advocating for? What are the advocacy efforts of students themselves? For example, they came up with "We Need Black Teachers" as a campaign that we've been helping to support. So if you ever look up weneedblackteachers.com or hashtag We Need Black Teachers, that's from our student voices. So the policy advocacy is one space. Another one is professional learning. Is another pillar that really speaks to not only developing this next generation of Black teachers, but also educators in the ecosystem writ large. Like, what does it mean to be a school or a district that's supportive of Black teachers and other diverse, educators? What does it mean for those in the educator prep programs? What does it mean for them to be professionally developed and continuing to improve and enhance? But the big bulk of our work around pathways. So we call these the three P's: policy, advocacy, professional learning, and then pathways is the big bulk of our work. Where we engage high school students, college students in this concept of teaching. So imagine a 10th grader doing a student teaching for themselves, so to speak. So they're teaching first, second, and third graders and learning what is Black pedagogical frameworks, what's a Black historical lens to teaching. We have career technical ed course that we have that are being implemented across the country, where high school students are taking this course. And it's basically CTE credits to learn what teaching is about, and particularly what are Black pedagogical frameworks to teaching. So we want to expose high school and college youth to that, but we also want to support high school and college students once they decide to teach and they're matriculating through college. We want to make sure that the efforts to recruit Black teachers is connected to the social, political, and economic realities that they may face.
I want to get deeper into these themes in just a
Mhm.
minute, but first, what is your own origin story? I know you have a strong background in education. You were a teacher in Philadelphia for many years.
Right.
What drew you personally to education as a profession?
Yeah, I got waylaid from law school. I graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, western side of Pennsylvania. And, I was not originally interested in teaching. It never just crossed my mind. But I, was recommended by, a parent of one of my best friends in elementary school, who recommended that I go to an information session. There was an organization called Concerned Black Men. They were a partner with the School District of Philadelphia and the first HBCU, Cheyney University, to recruit and support Black men to get into teaching. At that time, I think their goal was to recruit and support 500 Black men to work in the School District of Philadelphia. Reluctantly, I attended the meeting, but I met Dr. Martin Ryder, who I was just, fascinated with the way that he talked about teaching, the way that he talked about activism and the connections between educational justice and racial justice, the impact that teachers could make and the community of educators that was, continuing to grow in Philadelphia, particularly for Black men. And I was intrigued, and it resonated with me with all of the activism that I grew up around, in this ecosystem of activism that my family and my teachers had really carefully cultivated. So what he was saying resonated with me, even though I hadn't thought about it prior to Dr. Martin Ryder speaking specifically about it. I began my career as a teacher, eighth grade, language arts and social studies. And that was 30 years ago. I've been engaged and really in love with the profession and the concept of, providing great education opportunities for all citizens of this country.
I'd love to hear more about why you think it's so important for young people to have diverse teachers, and Black teachers specifically. Can I share a story about a Black teacher that I had, who
Please
has stayed
do.
with me through all my life? So
Yeah.
my staff team has heard me talk about Ramel Johnson, Miss Johnson, my sixth grade teacher at PS 98 in Queens. The story that they've heard is that she told our class something that has stayed with me through my entire life. And that is, she said, use a word three times and it's yours. And people will always tell me, they will comment on two things about me. They comment about this gray streak in my hair, and they will comment about the fact that I have a good vocabulary. And when they ask me, like, where did you get that from? Did you read a lot, et cetera? I say, yeah, I read a lot and all of this, but really it came from my sixth grade teacher who said, use a word three times and it's yours. And I never forgot that. And as I became a teenager and older, every time I encountered a new word, I invoked that mantra, and it really helped me. But the story that my team doesn't know that I would like to share with you now is, so I had Miss Johnson in sixth grade. So I was 11, 12 years old. And, at that time, a lot of children are coming into, a consciousness about race and racism, maybe just emerging. And she told us a story of being a born and bred New Yorker, but then taking a trip down south to visit her family there for the first time as a child, and making what was then the mistake of going to a lunch counter and sitting down in a place where she was not permitted to be at that time. And that, for how, as a Black girl in the 50s, that was something that was her own formative experience of racism. And she shared that with us. And I have to say, for me, as a young child, hearing that story from her and her experience opened up my consciousness to what race and racism were in a way that I wasn't getting and hadn't gotten from conversations about that topic with my own family, or with other people who shared my background. And so I wanted to share that because it is true that I look back on that experience too as something that expanded my consciousness in a way that was then built on. But I'd love to know how you think about it. Why is teacher diversity important? Why is the work of having more robust Black educators an important thing for us in general?
Yeah, for us, we really look at this as, both short and long term perspectives. But, the bottom line, we believe this is a really a critical life and death situation, for our youth. And, we often talk about, that it's, Black teachers are good for Black students, but Black teachers and diverse teacher workforce is good for all students, actually. And, when we look at short term, one of the number one things that has this long term impact are expectations. Having high expectations, having high levels of support, seeing the full humanity of Black youth. Time and time again, research after research after research demonstrates that Black teachers are much, much more likely to see the full humanity of Black students. And it doesn't deter them from seeing the full humanity of all students. There's research out there that shows, a Black child, same grades and test scores, et cetera, as their white counterparts, and the white teacher will not look at them as having potential. where the Black teacher will look at both students as potential. We know that short term, a Black child that has a Black teacher is less likely to be suspended, expelled, or even referred for discipline, better grades, better test scores, better attendance, more likely to see themselves in the curricula and in the teaching, better communication between home and school. Like it just, the list goes on and on and on. And I think a big part of that is the cultural proficiency and awareness, but also the fluidity for that Black teacher to also navigate with other students from other backgrounds without looking at them as having, from a deficit mindset and landscape. But we also know long term, based off of some of the research of Dr. Constance Lindsay and her colleagues and peers, where it shows over and over again, long term, that's Black child with a Black teacher is more likely to graduate, more likely to see themselves as able to attend college and enrolling. Um, Less likely to be referred for special education unnecessarily. And so these are all things that have a colossal impact on Black youth achievement. And not having a significant plan to not only recruit but retain Black educators uh, in an ecosystem that is 80% of the public school teachers are white, and increasingly the student body is more and more diverse, is it's unconscionable that this is not a major intervention effort in every area and space in our public school sector.
I watched recently the segment on 60 Minutes featuring this one a school, Catholic school in the New
New
Orleans area.
Orleans, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
where the two young ladies solved a math problem that had been unsolved for 2,000 years, providing a trigonometry-based solution to the Pythagorean theorem. And the whole story of the piece, the backstory, was about the fact that this is a school that was founded for young Black women. The staff team, the leadership are Black, and everything you just said,
Mhm.
how students' lives and experiences are understood, what standards and expectations the school sets, and how they communicate that. It was so clear that while this achievement was something that these two young women did in and of themselves, the whole ethic of the school and the way it operated also contributed significantly to their success. You spoke earlier about pedagogy informed by understanding the Black student experience. Can you say a little bit more about the specific ways that your organization does things to create that appreciation in pedagogy?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that segment on 60 Minutes. One of our Black Educator Hall of Famers, Philadelphia native Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings, was also featured
Yeah.
in there. And this is our 30th anniversary of her work publishing The Dreamkeepers and talking about some of the pedagogical and instructional moves that Black teachers were doing, in classrooms that really spoke to what expectations look like, what understanding, full humanity of a child looks like, what cultural proficiency, looks like in instruction, in lesson planning and delivery, all those things. And so, one of the things that we've been doing is studying people like Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings and others who've actually have kind of pulled out and designed and constructed. Oh, here's competencies that should be in the classroom of any classroom, but particularly those who are teachers of Black youth and Black students. And what do those mean? And we believe that our high school students are old enough, mature enough, sophisticated enough to engage in these competencies, to think about these competencies. And so we give them opportunities to not only learn about it, but also in true career technical education framing, it's a hands-on approach to learning and exploring a career pathway. So this exploration into a career pathway into teaching means that they actually get to be in front of first, second, and third graders in a local elementary school, understanding like what does it mean to apply these competencies, to understand it and to not only invest themselves in it, but ensure that these are meshed into their mindsets and skill levels as they begin to explore this as a career pathway. And so being able to take that, build on the work of people like Dr. Koso Lassane, who does, is writing and researching about Black teaching traditions and making sure that our youth are exposed to them, that they can understand them, that they internalize them as they pursue this career of leading classrooms of their own one day and be able to apply the principles, the strategies, and the mindsets that are healthy and worthy of our students.
It's so interesting that you ground your work in enabling people to have the experience of teaching and being exposed to elements of the career as a way to really see if it's a good match for them. It's a lot of what we also do at Nifty. We're entrepreneurship education, but a good deal of our model is also connected to career exploration. And for us, that happens by having corporate and community volunteers come into classrooms. They're supporting elements of the students' development of their business plan, but they're also there as representatives of their own companies, their own jobs, their own experiences. And we try very hard to have a diverse pool of volunteers. And I find, as I imagine you do, that just having that experiential component where students can see up close a job or career or sector really goes a long way in helping to understand what that job is, first of all, but also whether it's a good match to understand at a deeper level what's really involved. Our mission is to focus on diverse communities and to bring the tools of entrepreneurship education to places that don't have it. And there are a lot of places across the country and around the world where we now work at that scale that don't have access to those tools. But we're in the season where I'm going around the country for our regional competitions, and I love coming across young learners who defy easy stereotypes about what people from different walks of life can do. We just had our Southeast regional competition in Miami, and that's a region that spans our programs from North Carolina all the way down south to Florida. The winner was a young Black woman from DeKalb County, Georgia, and her business is a math tutoring business. And it was a fantastic pitch. And what made it so great was she was talking in a very detailed and authentic way about how she loved math and how the fact that she was so good at math was the reason why her business was going to work. And she didn't have to come out and explicitly say it, but what really came through was, her story was defying a lot of stereotypes about women in math, about Black women in math. And she came forward with such a fantastic pitch and was so confident in it. And afterwards, I said, as you grow your business, what else are you going to do? And she said, well, I'm going to study to be a math teacher because
wow. Yes.
that's my passion. So I imagine that, you too have many moments like that where you see people who really make that connection, and they're going to be successful because it's grounded in talent and passion. What
Yeah.
we have a lot of teachers who work with us. How can teachers learn more about what you do and gain access to some of your organization's resources?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, one of the big ways is to sign on to our students campaign. And so as you mentioned with that young lady who was passionate about math, we have students, high school students who are so passionate about this idea of, as Mary Church Terrell used to say, lifting as they climb, and looking at leading a classroom of their own as their way of lifting as they climb, their contribution to human rights and social justice. And they came up with a campaign that we've been helping to champion, and we hope that your network can help our students champion it as well. And it's a very simple campaign that these sophomores came up with, which is "We need Black teachers." And so if you go to weneedblackteachers.com, or hashtag We Need Black Teachers, you can see how people around the country have been elevating and amplifying this, what the students call their rallying cry and their demand. things that they, we look at students now who are graduating college and saying, we need Black teachers, so I became one. And, exposing youth to a career in teaching. It's been, a really heartbreaking and fascinating simultaneously for me, where I guess it's been peculiar, even as a high school principal, seeing and noticing that our state, for example, had career pathways in everything except teaching.
Mhm.
Carpentry, maintenance, even, cosmetology, but not for teaching until recently. And we caught up with some of the other states who actually had career and technical ed for aspiring teachers. And being able to expose high school students, invite them into the profession, I feel is absolutely critically important. And simultaneously, we have to make sure that we are producing and creating and designing systems that are welcoming and sustaining and respectful of these Black youth that we are desperately trying to recruit.
It's funny that there are things in our education system that ought to be reflected, like career exploration for the teaching profession.
And not just
W-
organic, right? Like just like, well, you
right.
were a student for 13 years, so if you're interested, you'll just knock on the door one day,
No, I totally get it. This is why we exist at Nifty, because we're like, why is an entrepreneurship education more of a thing, given how much entrepreneurship in US society is a real thing? I wanted
Mhm.
to ask you one more question, and then we can wrap up. As we're going along here, I've been thinking about other Black teachers I had who I really recall strongly from my educational career. I'll mention two from my high school years. I mentioned my
Mm.
sixth grade teacher. One, and may she rest in peace, her name was Lynn Evans. She was my English teacher. I had her a couple of times. And the thing that I remember about Miss Evans is that she had a, a, a gentle and supportive style. The way she gave critical feedback was so positioned so well with respect to who the student was and orienting it around a way that I could hear it and really adopt it instead of rejecting it. That's one thing I remember.
Mm.
And I also remember that she had a great love of literature.
Mm.
We read the Iliad and the Odyssey with her, but she also used that as a springboard to open our mind to the greater oeuvre, and that's what I recall about her. And then very differently, I had a Spanish teacher, Dorino Guerrero, around the same time, who had a completely different style. But what came through was this kind of um, intense tough love, where from day one, it was clear that she was setting a very high standard for us in the class, and she was going to challenge us to get there. And even pressure us to get there, but it was also going to be supported through excellent teaching. I bring up those examples because I imagine in the work you do, you're not saying that there's a monolithic way that Black educators should be, or that monolithic way Black children should be taught. Say a little bit more about the sort of diversity of educational approaches that you think about and the diverse ways in which Black children and all children need to be supported.
Yeah, no, I think if there is a through line, it is just this love for this Black children and their achievement. This what you described through both of those teachers that you had was something that people like Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings and others would describe as being a warm demander, having not just these high expectations but also a high level of support that knows, like, okay, our students can achieve, actually belief in the students, and designing their lessons, their interactions, their relationships in ways that help students achieve beyond what they thought they could, but doing it with a love and spirit, doing it with a deeper connection, doing it with respect for them and their families' aspirations, doing it through a level of humanity, right? And so that would be a through line, and that comes in all different ways. When I think about Mama Renee Fluellen, who was my elementary school teacher, she looped with us for a few years. So I believe she was either first through third or first through fourth grade teacher for me and my classmates. And she was a warm demander. and she was quiet, she was stoic, but she was also loving. And then I think about who taught me how to teach, which was Yvonne Savior, who was a master teacher, Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year, right before I started in 1993. And she taught me about the science of teaching and how to deliver a lesson, how to design lessons. And they had two different styles, but they were both warm demanders. And I make that connection from my time as a first grader all the way till, a couple decades later when another Black woman, Yvonne Savior, was teaching me how to lead a classroom of my own, right? And so different styles, but they were both warm demanders. They both had high expectations, and they both were like, we're on this journey together. We're going to lift as we climb as a community.
Well, this is a time period of the year when we are celebrating and thanking all of our nifty educators for the work that they do. So to all the warm demanders in our
Mm.
educator force who watch this podcast and pay attention to this series, thank you for the work that you are doing with our nifty students. And Sharif El-Mekki, thank you for all that you are doing, leading the Center for Black Educator Development and advancing this important work. It's been great to have you with us, and I hope that we'll have many more opportunities to interact. Thanks so much.
No, absolutely, and please extend our warmest from the center to the Nifty Network, and we also invite them to consider submitting a proposal for our Black Male Educator Convening, which happens in November, November 21st. So that's on our website. It's our 7th annual National Black Male Educators Convening, and it's open to all, but it really centers that 1.3% of public school teachers who identify as Black men.
Thank you. And please say your website so our
Oh,
listeners
yeah.
know where.
Sure, absolutely. www.thecenterblacked.org. www.thecenterblacked.org.
Sharif, thanks again. And thanks again, viewers and listeners, for taking time to be with us for this latest episode of Entre News. We will see you. And until next time, have a great conclusion to the school year. Bye-bye.